So, episode 4 of Murder Drones just dropped, and actually, you know what? Cut the video. I've got a better idea. Also, change the music. I'm getting a little tired of using the same song over and over again. We good? Alright then, let's start over. That's better. But anyways, yeah, after the prom episode, I don't really feel like making any more review videos, until the series ends at least. It just gets to this point where I'm repeating the same points over and over again, you know? That said, with how batshit insane episode 4 was, the itch to talk about this series got drop-kicked back into my heart, so I'm doing what I told myself I wouldn't. I'm throwing my hat back into the ring to do a worse version of what everyone else has already done. Between Uzi going murder drone, the references to a secret shadow character, and all the other mysteries this series beat us over the head with, I'm finally making a theory video about murder drones. So, let's get right into it, shall we? But anyways, what's up my guys and gals, it's your boy Tyromaniac, back with another smoking hot video, and today, I'm finally talking about the lore of murder drones. Spoilers, because obviously. Also no, you're not getting a plot rundown, quit being lazy, and go watch Murder Drones yourself. Real quick before we get into the video though, my buddy Jimmy started his own shirt company. Look at how funny these are. I even got to design this one. Go check it out with the link in the description and use my code Tyromaniac to get 15% off your order. Anyways, Murder Drones lore. Where to start? That'll do. So, let's take this piece by piece. It got hinted at in episode 3, and really got going in episode 4, but we're starting to see that Uzi's been craving some of that warm, sweet oil, just like her murder drone buddies. Throughout the first half of episode 4, we see an error message on her face screen saying that her internal temperature is starting to get a bit too high, which she tries to fix by reaching for the severed limbs she has in her backpack. Common school essential, really. Hope you didn't forget, but way back in the pilot, N said this is a huge reason why the murder drones kill worker drones, because they need the oil to stop themselves from overheating. Aside from that, we also get a scene at the end of the episode showing us that Uzi's body can't handle direct sunlight anymore, which, again, is something that should only affect murder drones according to N in the pilot. Now, with all that said though, I still don't think Uzi's gone and turned into a straight-up disassembly drone. Even after her transformation, there are still a few key murder drone features that she's missing. The AbsoluteSolver symbol being on her face screen instead of the standard murder drone X is probably the most important, but there's also the fact that her face display is still purple and not yellow like the other murder drones. There's also the fact that her new appendages are more flesh and bone than they are machine, and that the rest of her still follows the usual worker drone build. Anyways, that's the how of Uzi's transformation. Now we gotta look at the when and the why. Going back to the overheating theme from earlier, I'd say it's safe to assume that Uzi didn't really have a good way of getting oil since eating people is generally frowned upon by today's society. Unfortunate, I know. Keep in mind, it looked like her transformation only started after the overheating issue reached a tipping point, as in she was basically knocking on death's door unless she gets some of that gooey black stuff inside her. Then there's the mental factor to consider, i.e. psychopathy, since there are pretty clear moments where Uzi is and isn't in control of herself. The first time she loses it is in the cabin after these two lovebirds walk in on her, whatever this is, before seemingly regaining control for a split second before going on to kill a few more of her classmates. She also regains control after V bitch slaps her out of the sky before losing it again when V threatens to kill her. She only fully snaps out of it after N, someone she has a deep emotional connection to, steps in to put her on timeout in the damn stratosphere. What I'm basically saying is, it looks like Uzi only loses control of herself whenever she's literally about to die, whether she is running low on oil or something else is trying to kill her. So, taking a step back, what does everything I've rambled about mean? Well, it looks like what we're dealing with is some sort of entity that keeps Uzi alive by taking control of her mind and body whenever she's about to die. Whatever it is turns her into some sort of biomechanical murder drone hybrid and makes her Hello Kitty girl insane. And from there, it's basically just kill everything that moves, unless that everything includes N apparently. So, let's all think critically here for a second, right? Where else in the series have we seen an entity that takes control of its hosts and forces them to kill in order to stay alive? I mean, come on. The figure that Glitch made for Murder Drone Uzi on their store page is literally called AbsoluteSolver. Anyways, from the weird biomechanical nature of it all to the all too familiar eye symbol, it looks like we're dealing with everyone's favorite failsafe program, the AbsoluteSolver. We already know what it does to murder drones thanks to Jay's lovely example from episode 2 after Uzi vaporized her top half in the pilot. Essentially, when the host takes too much damage, it takes control and sets about killing in the shadows to gather enough material to rebuild. We also know this applies to the other murder drones thanks to N getting his head vaporized in the pilot. After Jay slaps some sense back into him, we see a reboot screen with a line of code saying that the AbsoluteSolver tried to take over for him too, and the only reason it didn't is because it got blocked. More on that later. So, it looks like whatever version of the AbsoluteSolver that Uzi has is doing the exact same thing we saw with Jay, stepping in when the host is in critical danger and doing what it has to keep them alive. The only difference is that for Jay, this meant turning into a giant eldritch centipede that uses holograms to lure in unsuspecting victims, while for Uzi it means driving her insane and turning her into some kind of weird biomechanical murder drone hybrid. Hell, there's even evidence of it going back to episode 3. In case you forgot, the first time we ever saw Uzi actually tap into these AbsoluteSolver powers was when she stopped the bullet that Doll fired at her. Speaking of Doll, small tangent, but it looks like she's the only other worker drone affected by the AbsoluteSolver, hence her having the eye symbol, the god powers, that Uzi has now too, and all the oil she just has lying around. Like, come on, don't just leave it out like that, it'll spoil. There is one other thing that unites Uzi and Doll though, their collars. The fact that they're the only two who have them makes me think that they mostly serve as a way of identifying AbsoluteSolver hosts, especially since Uzi's only showed up after the encounter with Doll. If that's true though, then I should probably mention that Khan told Uzi at the start of episode 4 that the collars just kinda showed up one day at Camp 98.7, and we see from the old photos he shows her that they originally belonged to Nori and Yeva, Uzi's and Doll's moms respectively. To me, this says that Nori and Yeva were the original hosts of the AbsoluteSolver before passing it down to their kids, which AbsoluteSolver J kinda implies in episode 2. That could help explain why Nori went crazy after coming back. Well, with all the spooky scribblings and prophetic visions of the murder drones and the singularity. So anyways, the AbsoluteSolver is a failsafe program for the murder drones, and some worker drones, that takes over when the host is in deep enough shit, doing what it has to keep the host alive, whether that means horrifying physical transformations or powerful telekinetic abilities. All that said though, where'd the hell did this thing come from? Well, let's see. What's the other bombshell episode 4 dropped that I haven't talked about yet? In case you didn't catch it, after finding Uzi in her murder drone cosplay, V casually name-dropped someone named Sin. The exact line for those who really want to know is, "New body, same horrors. Eh, Sin?" So, who might this Sin character be? Are there any other mysterious characters that V could have met before that just kinda showed up out of nowhere with no explanation? Well, if you remember N's flashback in episode 2, you'll remember that there was a time when the murder trio we all know and love were just regular worker drones. Notice the white face displays as opposed to the signature yellow, and the normal worker drone limbs instead of the arsenals they have now, plus no tail. Well, it's during this scene that we actually see a new drone get introduced by a girl named Tessa. More on her later. A drone who actually has the signature yellow face display before the murder trio. Of course, if that was the only time we saw her, then I wouldn't be bringing this up, now would I? Well, if you go frame by frame through the visions N gets when he touches the zombie drone's tape, you know, the one everyone's been clickbaiting to hell and back, you'll see the same drone from episode 2, notice the matching hairstyle and bow. Something's a bit off this time though, since now she's got the same AbsoluteSolver eye symbol that Uzi and Doll do. Oh, and she's got some poor worker drone's hand sticking out of her mouth. Anyways, in case you didn't guess already, I think that this mystery drone is Sin. That's not all though, because the best part is that episode 2 wasn't even the first time she was referenced in the show. Going all the way back to the pilot, if we take another look at N's reboot screen and the code saying that the AbsoluteSolver was blocked, we can actually see that it was blocked by none other than Administration Sin. Bear with me here because what I'm about to say is like 10% evidence, 90% creative guessing, but I think what we're seeing here with Sin is the first murder drone and patient zero for the AbsoluteSolver. Let me explain. I think the flashback in episode 2 shows us Sin's introduction to the murder trio, before they were the murder trio, as a way of introducing the AbsoluteSolver to the other drones. What we see in the visions from episode 4 is that eventually, Sin starts going through something kinda similar to what Uzi is now, where she starts killing other drones for their oil, as shown by the hand in her mouth. She's probably enjoying it too, judging by the fact that she's doing the signature murder drone death smile. Either way, I'd imagine she'd be doing it in secret for a while until whoever this is staring down at her, probably N based on the hair and it being his flashback, finds out. However, I think this might also be part of what led to the murder trio becoming murder drones, with the AbsoluteSolver somehow managing to spread from Sin to the other 3. With the mechanical enhancements the murder drones have, mostly just being taller and armed to the frickin' teeth, I'd imagine that the humans decided to just run with the whole AbsoluteSolver thing and use it to help turn N, V, and J into the first real disassembly drones while wiping their memories just to be safe, as said in episode 2. Unfortunately for Sin, the black hole with the text that just reads null that we see a few frames after her in N's flashback makes me think that something pretty catastrophic happened to her after all this went down that basically killed her, and definitely affected the trout population. That said, since she still has administrative authority over N's AbsoluteSolver, and probably Uzi's too, judging by V's comment, I'd assume part of her survived as something like a ghost in the system pulling a few strings from the shadows. Oh, and then there's Tessa. This one's not really worth its own segment, so I'll just run through it real quick here. Basically, after Uzi painted the snow with N's head, and the bunker floor with Jay's upper body, plus all the AbsoluteSolver business, I'd imagine some sort of message got sent up to Tessa that led her to drop in from orbit and clean up the mess. After all, N's reboot screen does tell him to see a certified technician, and guess who just so happens to fill that role. Anyways, yeah, let's get to wrapping this up, shall we? Before we go, I thought of a few bonus theories while editing this video. Here we go.
First, based off the hand we see slinking around in the shadows throughout episode 4, the flashes of Doll that we see behind Uzi and N, and V saying that the camping trip was an excuse to find out more about Doll, I'd say that Doll became another J-type AbsoluteSolver after the events of episode 3, and is now lurking around in the shadows just like Jay was. Second, in episode 2, Uzi mentioned that the murder drones had no method of communicating with the humans back on Earth, while N mentioned that Jay was still getting orders from somebody. Based on the fact that Tessa drops in from orbit with a clone of Jay, I'd say this mystery person was probably Tessa, while she was in orbit. Third,
actually I got nothing, those two were it. But yeah, Murder Drones episode 4 was crazy, and I just could not fight the urge to talk about it. I'm gonna be honest, originally I only wanted to cover what was going on with Uzi in this episode, but then that kinda just branched out into all these other things until eventually I got the script that I got. Sorry if none of this makes as much sense as my Internecion Cube series, like any of that made sense. But to be fair, I had way less time to work on this one since, you know, Murder Drones actually has new episodes on the way. Now we get to wait for episode 5 to come out so that everything I just said can be proven wrong. Also, I'm pretty sure you could read a thermostat in Alaska and get a number higher than my IQ, so take that as you will. But anyways, that's it for this video, so remember to light up that like button, smoke that subscribe button, drop a big old comment, check out some of the videos on the left, and I will see you guys in the next video. Also no, I'm not making a part 2, don't even ask.